Good evening, Daf Lamadar al Aleph, 6 lines from the top. Tanura Banam. Shor Shavim Ma'atayim Shinagach Shor Shavim Ma'atayim. If an ox is worth $200 at court, another ox is worth $200. Hababa Hamishim Zuz, and he heard it only $50. Right? So it went from worth $200 to worth $150. Then the value of this injured ox went up to 400 zuz. And it had not been injured, it would have hit 800 zuz. You pay half damage if it's the tam, according to the loss at the time of the damage. Right? So even though technically you lost another $400 afterward because it dropped more, it increased in price, you still only pay the damage at the time of payment at the time of damage. Let's say the injured ox actually lost more value, you still pay at the time of the court worth, right? So if it was worth $150 and then went down to 75, but it was 150 when you got judged, you're still paying 75 and not 37 and a half. Shavach mazik, let's say the ox that damaged increased in value after it damaged other animal. No tem no kish nezek, damager pays its value at the time the damage took place. If this is an animal that damaged depreciated, you pay, like we said before, the value of the judgment time. Amar more. Shavach mazik not in kishat nezek. If the value of the ox that damaged appreciated after damaged, the damager pays according to the value at the time of the damage. Mani, who is this according to? Rabbi Yishmael. It's according to Rabbi Yishmael. Damar Balachov, who Bezuzehu Masikle. He said that the damagee is considered the creditor. He's owed money by the damager, and he has a claim against him for that money. But then, if you look at it, the second case, if it damaged and depreciated, you only pay the value at the time of the judgment. That sounds like it's like shutafin, which means that it's partners, and therefore, if you're partners and the price went down, not my problem. We own the cow together. So Reish Rabbi Ishmael b'Sefer Rabbi Akiva. He sounds like the Braita according to Rabbi Ishmael in the first part, and Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Akiva in the second part. How do we explain this Braita? We say no, that's not the halacha. Rather, lo kula Rabbi Akiva. Really, the whole Braita is according to Rabbi Akiva. And over here, we're dealing with the following case. And in the case where the ox appreciated only pays the previous value, why? Kishe pitimo. We're dealing in a case where it increased in price because the owner gave the ox food, fattened it up, literally. And therefore, that's why it increased in value. Since it came through the damager's expense, therefore, the damagee has no connection to it. He has no stake in that value. If that's the case of the fattening, let's see the first part. If it jumped up to 400 zuz, you're still paying the original damage price, so let's say 200. If it's the same case of where the owner was the one that was fattening it up, then why would we think that the damager has any connection to that if it's damagee handling it? So what's the connection? The first part of the Braita applies where either the owner fattened it or it appreciated automatically via a shortage in the market, and therefore the cow became more expensive. Even in the case, it's teaching you that Hidush is that even in the case where it appreciated randomly, disconnected, not necessarily connected to the owner's actions, then even so, the damager pays according to the time of damage. However, the second case only applies to where the owner fattened the ox personally. If the injured ox depreciated after damage, the damager pays according to the loss of the time where it was in court. Why? What causes it to deteriorate? If you say deteriorated because now it can't work anymore, says the damager could tell him, 1 second, you made it deteriorate and I should pay. Meaning, what's he telling him? He's saying that maybe it depreciated because it worked, and therefore the damagee who uses ox afterward made it work and then it broke his leg. So the guy says, well, you put it to work and I'm going to lose because of that. And Marabashi Takahash Maka was referring to the case where it deteriorated in more due to the first injury. And therefore, Amarle Karana the Torah Kabirabe. And the guy, the damagee, could tell him, your ox's horn is buried in my ox's buried in my ox, meaning it's because of you. It's continuing to deteriorate because of your ox's goring. New Mishnah. Shor Shaveh Ma'atayim Chinagach Shor Shaveh Ma'atayim. $200 ox gored, another ox worth 200. Then on I feel like the carcass of the dead ox is worthless. Marta Bimeir, Azan Emar, the Pasuk says, Charot Ashor Achai V'Hatzud Kasbo. You shall sell the live ox and divide its money. That's the halacha. He says, you will fulfill the part of the pasuk. You fulfill the part of the pasuk that you should sell it and divide it. But look, but you didn't fulfill the part of the pasuk. You shall also divide the dead body. What's that referring to? It's referring to the case where the ox was worth 200, the Gordon a $200 ox, and the carcass is now worth 50. Right, so $200 ox killed a $200 ox, and the body is now worth $50. This one takes half of the live and half the one. They each take $125, right? 100 of the live and 25 of the dead. Number 9. 200 to 200 damage. And then the nevela is worth $50. The carcass is worth $50. They each take half of the live, half of the dead. This is referring to the case that the Torah is referring to. Meir says, this is not referring. This is not the Torah case that's referring to. Ella. It's referring to a case where the oxes killed each other and the carcass was worthless. You shall sell it and divide it. How do you fill the pasuk that says that you divide the dead one? It refers to the depreciation of the value that the death caused the gored animal. You divide it in the live animal, meaning the damagee is reimbursed for half of the money that he lost from the animal's life and afterward its death. Where it says Mifti, Ben Rida Ben Reir. This can fit according to both. The case where it went down from 200 to 50, then each one's taking 125, like we said earlier. My banana, what's the difference then? Maraba. It's referring to a case where the carcass depreciated after death. If the carcass depreciated, that is the depreciation belongs to the damagee only, his loss. No, we split it. Gemara says, if so, then according to the Yehuda, Tam Hamor Mu'ad is a tam more hamor than a mu'ad, meaning according to mu'ad, halacha is that if the value of the body depreciates, it all belongs to the damagee. Over here we see that you split it, according to Rizan, by a tam. So where it says, I mean, if you say it's true, maybe that's the case. In the case where if the ox is a tam, you're chayav, but if it's mu'ad, you're patur. Right, what's that case referring to? In Gemara in 10 days or so, that says that in the case of a tam, you're chayav chatzi nezek, even if you washed it, and it's still going to have gored. But in the case of mu'ad, if it did that, you're patur. If you washed it, you're patur. So, I understand that case of Ravida where the tam is more than a mu'ad in regarding the halacha of guarding it, because there's pasuk that tells you you're chayav in that scenario. But regarding tashlumin and payments, would you say that it holds that a tam is more chamor? In our case, where the damagee will take responsibility of the carcass's depreciation. Vatanya, you might think, sure, if an ox that was worth $100 that gored an ox that was worth $20, and the carcass is worth $4, right? So therefore the damage is around $16, went from 20 to 4. Then you take half of the line, half of the dead, and you split it. Amar, you can say in regarding to what part was the mu'ad singled out by the Torah and separated from the tam. Is it to make it mahmir or more strict or more lenient? Hagamer, you might think mahmir, right? In general, when people think of a mu'ad, it's the Torah's way of saying this is your problem for having this animal. You didn't watch it, and your carelessness led to this situation. So therefore, you would think that in general, the Torah is making it for a hamur purpose. In the case of muad, you only pay for the damage that you did. Tam haka lo koshkin. In the case of tam, which is more lenient, for sure it should be that case, right? Even if it's the case of the carcass that died and the carcass that lost value. So where it says, Rabbi Yochanan, Shevach Nevela Ikbenal. The key difference is who benefits if the carcass gains value after that. More savar than Izar, according to the mayor who holds that it belongs to the damagee. More savar pagan. You say you still split it, always splitting. Behind the kakash to Rabbi, and this is why there's this question against Rabbi Yehuda. Because Rabbi Yehuda's reasoning is now that you mentioned the Torah is kind or compassionate towards the damager in regarding to he takes the value that went up of the carcass. You might think in the case where the ox is worth $20 and they gored the ox that was worth $100, and now the dead body is worth 5 zuz, which is a $95 loss. You still split half and half, even though the damager gains money that way. Amart, you might think to say, you might say, no, I can't pay, because when would you find a scenario where the person who damages actually gains money? Pasuk says you shall pay. You don't gain. The Torah never says that the Baalim shall receive. It's referring to payments. It's a penalty. Payments, not benefiting. Therefore, the Bidah says, "My Vilmer, why do we need 2 pesukim?" Right? Whenever pasuk says Vil, whenever we're quoting pesukim and it says 1 pasuk, and it says Vilmer, it adds a second pasuk, because we're always going to ask, why my Vilmer? Why do we need 2 pesukim? The first pasuk is good enough. Why do you need a second pasuk? Well, it says, the Hikam, you might say, if you only say that you never found a case where a damager gains, you might say that only applies to a case where there's a loss to the damagee, meaning the damager never gains in a scenario where the damagee loses. But over here, where there is no loss to the damagee, in the case where a $20 ox gored another $20 ox, and the carcass was now worth 30, right? So it gained $10. Therefore, the damager should take value. Therefore, the pasuk says, also additionally, you shall pay. But teach you the idea that even in that scenario where the guy is gaining, you still don't receive money. Okay. In this scenario, according to the Bidah, we'll find the tam can pay more than Hatzin Nazek. Right? Why? Because if let's say we had a $50 ox that gored another or $40 ox, and now the ox is now worth $20, right? Right in half. The damage is now $20, and half the damage is $10. So if you split the live ox and the dead one, each of them now receive 35, right? Because you do 10 plus 50 and half of that, half of 10. So therefore you 5. Therefore each one's taking 35. And therefore the damagee is now receiving 3/4 of a refund, not half. So over here, in our case, the Torah says, you pay half. Over here, not paying half, you're paying almost 3/4. More, like 85%. Therefore, he said, Rabbi holds depreciation of the death caused to the animal is divided in the value of the live one. Meaning, he agreed to the mayor. The pasuk says that you pay half. However, that's only through the loss and the sale of the live animal, right? And therefore, he says that in the case of the carcass, though, it's different. How do we know this? It says, "Mi vegam et hamet yechaysun." The pasuk specifically says the dead body you also shall split. One second, that's pasuk's already used to teach you according to Bidah that you split the live and the dead one. So if the pasuk only taught you that, it should have said and the dead one. My vegam, why also the dead one? Teaching you two chidushim, that each one takes half of the dead and half of the live, and in the case where the money goes up, you split that as well. New Mishnah. A person can be chayav for his ox's action, but patur for his own action. If his ox did it, he's chayav, he's patur, but if he did it, he's chayav. In case that was the case, patur. If an ox humiliated someone else, he's patur. But if he humiliated someone else, he's chayav. If his ox blinded his avid's eye or knocked out his tooth, he's patur. But if he did it, he's chayav. If an ox wounded his father or mother, he's chayav for payment. But if he wounded his father or mother, he's patur because he's chayav mitah. And if you have two avirot, two punishments that you're chayav, for example, death and payment, you're patur in payment because kimle b'deraba minute. If someone's ox set fire to a grain, you're chayav. But if he lights it on fire, he's not patur, he's patur. Because he's also chayav mitah. Same concept of kimle b'deraba minute. So let's see. Taner Rabbi Avahu. Two commands. Taner Rabbi Avahu committed Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Avahu taught. Kama Kalim between anybody does destructive acts and Shabbat patur from punishment, chutz mechovel umabir, except for someone who wounds or burns something. Right? In that case, that's a destructive act that's chayav. Meaning, in general, if you destroy something, Shabbat's milachot are usually productive items. You destroy something, you're patur, except when the milacha is destruction, like wounding or burning. Marle, go teach your braita outside. Meaning, I don't agree with you. You're teaching nonsense. Go teach it outside. Someone who wounds or burns is not chayav according to halacha. If you say that there is a halacha that you can't wound or burn, it's referring to a case where someone inflicts a wound, hurts himself, does a wound, if he needs the blood for his dog, for example. If he burns, it's referring to a case where he needs the ashes. Basically, true wounding and burning, you're not is destructive and you're chayav. But the oraita, the only time you be chayav is when it's for a productive purpose. So you're destroying to produce, demolishing to build. That's a case of chiyuv deraita, or untying to tie. So it's over here. If you're wounding yourself because you need the blood, or you're burning something for the ashes, that's destruction for constructive purpose. Tanan, like a mishnah. If an ox set fire to something, you're chayav. But if it's on fire, it's patur. We said in that case, it's referring to a case where he is comparable to his ox. Just like over there, the ox set it on fire, not because it wanted it to be constructed with ashes. And we said you're still chayav mitah, even though it wasn't for a constructive purpose, for like the ashes, for example, and you're still chayav mitah, and you're patur for the money. Mar says not a good explanation. It's referring to the case where the ox is doing it similar to himself. Mahu de kavaile, just like over there by Shabbat, he's doing it because he wants it. Avshalak de kavaile, Shuto's ox is also doing it because it needs the ashes. Mar says 1 second. I mean the ox doing it for the ashes. Amar le'av avia hachma is referring to the case b'short bekeach alta lo neshicha begabo. It's referring to a very smart ox that receives a bite on its back. And he wants to burn the stack and roll around in the ashes. How do you know that's the purpose? How do you know that when you speak oxen language? Because immediately after it burns, it rolls around in the ashes. Is that such a concept that you have a smart ox that could do that? In the Hutura, have a beta the ox in Rav house. The have a Kevin he had a toothache. He went inside and pushed the cover off a barrel. It has to drink beer until it was healed. Interesting. All right. Amen. Amen. See you here tomorrow.